Welcome everybody to the Nathan Andrew podcast number 11. Trump has the Rona, so that's one of the things we'll be discussing today, amongst other things. But I mean, it just seemed too interesting not to talk about. Um, so I'm Andrew,
I'm Nate.
and yeah, we'll be going over that. So have you been following that much at all?
The fact that Trump is the Rona?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like,
Not too much. I think it's very surprising that his wife doesn't have it, as far as I can tell.
um, I heard they both got tests, but I haven't heard anything in terms of like they just confirmed that he had it. They didn't confirm whether or not she did.
Okay.
um, but it's kind of interesting because there's been a couple of great jokes out there about it. Like Babylon B had an amazing one where they're like, let me get the actual quote just so I can quote it correctly. Um, Here we go. Party that wants to run your healthcare roots for political opponent to die. So I just on point as always, Babylon B. Um, but yeah, it's interesting because it gives them 2 weeks to like. So if you like believe in all the Q stuff, I haven't followed like any of the Q stuff or whatever, but um, that they've been alluding to like the whole storm thing for like a long time. If you were going to have to disappear for 2 weeks and nobody was going to question where you were, like saying that you had the coronavirus is the perfect cover.
Yeah, I think that it's standard to be isolated for 2 weeks right now.
Yeah, so it's just I don't think I mean everybody basically recovers besides old people, but like Trump acts like he's 20 almost. Like the dude has so much energy. So I'm not worried about like if I don't really believe the disease is a thing, but let's say it is and like the people that they claim are dying from it are dying from it. Well technically coronavirus is classified under in the textbooks under the common cold. So, does Trump potentially have the common cold? I could believe that. It's getting colder. Uh, but it could also be an ability, or it could be a um, gateway for him to getting some stuff done and really focusing down on some stuff that he wouldn't be able to do and needs to do things out of the public eye for an extended period of time. Um, but that's just a guess. It's not really no way to really definitively say one way or the other.
What is he going to do? Go to center Earth with the lizard people and do what?
Uh, so what? Let me see if I can find something on it. I mean, all of the so if they were gonna do like a massive campaign for like arresting people, or if there was just some um like he's basically been against the deep state the whole time. So if he needed to make a major move that was like against the deep state that like he needed to focus on and need to be out of the public eye for a certain amount of time to be able to pull off, that this would give him the cover for it, right? I don't know what's going on or if it's even like what maybe he's just sick, but you know what's the number one rule is never believe the media, and the media is telling you he has coronavirus. So it's like, okay, well that's not what happened. So what did happen? And he could
I
be he's
understand.
just sick and like the lie is that he has coronavirus and it's just like actually the common cold, which technically is classified under corona. But
Yeah, I understand that. My thought process immediately is like, okay, well, they're going to go snuff the rooster.
nah.
No, not a thing.
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of people that have wanted him down for the count for a while, and it could be that like this is their October surprise gambit kind of thing. Seems unlikely. Like, why wouldn't you have? Because here's the thing. Like, it doesn't even make sense that he got it. You know, he was doing like all the rallies and stuff like that when they were like angry at him. Like, if you wanted to get him like sick or whatever, then was the time to do it when it lined up with your narrative. Now it's like, well, he's been kind of like social distancing just by happenstance uh, for like the last couple of months. So it's like, well, why would he have caught it, kind of thing. I realize most of these people don't use any logic when they spout these things, like, but you know, it's an odd time to get it, and I think the reason that he's doing it now is he felt like he only needed one debate with Biden to just body him. And then after that, like if he didn't do another debate, it wouldn't be a big deal. And you could use him getting the coronavirus as a cover for that. So he could just be like, all right, well, we don't need to do any debates anymore. Now I can focus on other things that need my attention, and I don't need to. But he needed that debate to kind of show that Biden was a weak leader, kind of thing. He needed at least one. Um, but
Yes, he did.
so did you watch the debates?
I did.
Oh, okay. I figured you probably did. But what'd you think?
You know, I liked part of it quite a lot. I really liked the part where Trump made it. So Trump asked Biden what Biden thought about Antifa. Would Biden disavow Antifa? And Biden would not disavow Antifa. I thought that was pretty fascinating, especially when everyone's been beating up on Trump over the Proud Boys, which last I checked, I think it's a black Cuban man who is the head of Proud Boys, which makes me really confused about the white supremacy aspect of it.
Yeah, but
And
most people
and
don't look into it. They just take the media's word for it,
of course, when would the government lie to you? When would the media lie to you?
right?
I can't think of a single time I couldn't think of 9/11 or um, the Vietnam War or anything like that. Everything they tell you is 100% true.
Yeah.
Anyways, uh, going off of that, um, he also disavowed the Green New Deal, and I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, he got some
Be-
pushback for that one.
yeah, no, I think he really, yeah, no, he he distanced himself from the far left, and I think that that's really going to come back and bite him in the butt. If Trump was to disavow firearm owners, if Trump was to disavow his tax cuts, I think that this would have absolutely been the last couple nails in the coffin for Trump.
Yeah.
And I just don't see how it wouldn't be for Biden.
Well, Biden needs to separate himself from the far left because he had this like impossible task of needing to be super far left to win the primary, but moderate to win actual people. Because like the only people that like the far left dominated the primary process, and like they were going to be the primary voters. But like in a general election, they are not the majority. They are a tiny little fringe group, and they're apparently growing in size. But like they're just like a very low vocal minority. So it doesn't make sense to um, have them. It doesn't make sense to pander to them, and you need to all the people that are on the fringe where they're like, you guys have gone crazy, and like there's a bunch of Democrats like with the walk away movement and all that where they're just like, you guys are insane. I'm just gonna vote Republican because they're just offering sanity. So
Yeah, no, I think there definitely is some of that. And sorry, one thing I want to say with lying to your people sort of thing. I mean, 9/11 obviously happened. There was those towers fell down and all that, which is, of course, a national tragedy. I just think that a lot of the stuff they told us about it afterwards is not true. We get into that at a different time. But yeah, no, I think there is a very vocal minority, and I think the vocal minority always gets all the attention throughout history. And I don't really know how I feel about any of this because I'm at the point where I don't know where the majority of anyone stands, and I kind of feel a little bit crazy because there have been values that I've held my entire life, and I don't see a lot of other people holding my values, just in one-to-one conversations, and
Like,
sometimes
what
I
kind
do.
of values are like on the
Like,
outside?
well, the value of being able to defend yourself. Like when I'm in Washington, there's a lot of people. Actually, funny thing, most people in Washington now do not believe this, but for my entire life when I lived in Washington, most people believe you shouldn't be able to defend yourself. Like that should be the government's job because it's too messy for a civilian to be able to defend themselves against any kind of threat.
Yeah, I
Uh,
I get it. But
and
like,
I've always,
you're
yep,
also living in Seattle, which is like one of the liberal havens of the United States.
yeah, yeah. I mean, granted, however, I think people kind of developed over however long to be in a tribe that's what 500 1,000 people, very small groups of people. So I just don't know where the entire country falls in this, and I don't really believe in polling too much because the polls, for example, like the Rasmussen poll was the only poll that even came close to getting the election right in 2016. So I'm curious if any of the other polls that show where Americans align on issues are correct at all, or if they're just to push a narrative.
Well, they're basically to push narrative. There's a couple that have been shown to be accurate throughout the years. I forgot the name of them. It might be the Rasmussen one, but don't quote me on that. There's basically one person that got the 2016 election right, and you should listen to them potentially. Or just listen to your own logic. Does like the media lies and they invert, right? So like they will always project what they're actually doing. Like, let's see if I can find a good example. Uh,
Oh yeah, no,
okay,
I
here
mean,
we go.
yep.
Trump, Trump derangement syndrome on steroids. Um, and to think they accuse us of being conspiracy theorists. Democrats don't know whether to celebrate or batten down the hatches in the face of reports that President Trump is infected with the coronavirus. Uh, and then, so this is a quote from somebody. I don't think he has it either, but I believe he knows he's going to lose, and he'll have to face the rest of his life in prison. I think he's prepared to make a run for it uh, to a country that doesn't have an extradition treaty with the U.S. I think he's been shifting campaign funds offshore accounts for quite a while. Uh, so if you've been following anything that's been going on with like these, uh, this is just pure projection. Almost like all the high up, like elite, um, top like CEOs and stuff like that, and a bunch of people in Hollywood and stuff like that have been doing exactly what they are claiming that Trump is doing right now because they know he's going to win, and if he does win, this is going to happen to them, so they need to do all this stuff. Like it's the level of projection that they do nowadays is like unreal because it like there's like subtle projection and then there's like absolute like crazy projection of like no one was even saying that kind of thing. So there's like um I'm trying to even think of a subtle one. Well, okay, I guess the best example is like Tucker Carlson had like a good example of this, where it they don't subtly lie, they lie to a crazy degree. So instead of being like, you'll ask them, did you take the last cookie out of the cookie jar, right? And instead of being like, no or something like that, they'll be like, you took the last cookie out of the cookie jar, and it's like, instead of just lying and trying to dodge the question, like they go and like blame you for doing the thing that you're saying they do, and it's like it's weird. It's like a weird level of projection.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, no, to me it was fascinating how many people told me that Trump is going to get us into a bunch of new wars when he got elected.
I mean,
And
from
to
certain
me,
perspectives,
yeah.
I can kind of see it.
Oh, sorry, say that again.
Just think about the North Korea situation, right? because I was still kind of figuring stuff out then, and I didn't think we were gonna go to war with North Korea necessarily, but like things were getting kind of heated, and it wasn't really clear. Like a lot of people weren't familiar with like Trump's art of the deal style negotiation type thing. So like since that was kind of the first time we were seeing it, it was kind of like, oh boy, I don't know what's going on. But like by the time Iran rolls around and he's doing the same thing, you're like, oh, this is just his like negotiation tactic.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I know war happens, but let's at bare minimum keep it to a minimum. And I don't know, Trump, he hasn't gotten us into a bunch of wars in Africa and the Middle East and other countries where we really have virtually no business being in. And I don't know, maybe our predecessor, our real great guy Obama, and even the greater guy Bush before him, maybe they got us into a lot of these ridiculous wars. And maybe this guy Trump, who is not an establishment type, maybe he'll keep us out of them. And I gotta say, like, just on the strength of that alone, that makes me really happy that the guy's in office.
Yeah, no, it's that is one of Trump's better traits. I wish he would get us out of some of these wars, but
Amen.
I don't know. Like it's hard to like we're trying to say like what move you should make on the chessboard, but like we can only see like probably like a quarter of the pieces, you know.
No, no, I agree.
So in that regard, and like but I also kind of get like Ann Coulter's line of thing where it's like, well, if you don't say what you want from them and you kind of just always assume that they're doing stuff behind the scenes for you, kind of thing, you don't really hold them accountable, and then they can just kind of get away with what they want. Um, and so it's you need to make sure that you're holding these people accountable. And so it's good to have like kind of a balance where you have like some commentators that are always holding their feet to the fire kind of thing, and then others who are like, we get that there's maybe stuff going on that we can't see, and then it gives you both perspectives of like, okay, well, I still need to stay accountable to these people, but um, you know, I am at least appreciated for the things that they can't see that I am getting done. Um,
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Um, I don't know. There's a lot of people who suggested that Trump was going to get us into these crazy wars, and then there was what's her face, Hillary, who said, "Yes, if I am elected, I will probably or I will attack Iran," which sounds like not a great idea to me. And I don't know about you, but I've noticed that Iran has been 2 months away from developing a nuclear missile. Um, I think since like 1980,
yep.
and that's an incredible that's incredibly interesting to me. I think that maybe our estimates are a little bit off, but what do I know? I'm just an industrial engineer. I only majored in efficiency.
Yeah, it's the right wing's version of uh, climate change, right?
Yeah,
We have to do all these drastic measures because we're a month away from everybody being dead.
yeah, yeah. It's a final countdown.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
interestingly, we probably would have been at war with Russia if Hillary had gotten elected. So it's a good thing
yeah,
Trump got elected because had actively said she was going to shoot down Russian planes over Syria, which would have escalated things. And then she was also going to bring Ukraine into NATO, which was like one of the deals, like as the Soviet Union broke apart, was like, look, like if you're going to continue to have NATO, which its purpose has ended, you cannot bring it to our doorstep, right? Like there's got to basically be a set of buffer states um, that are not in NATO, and they wanted to bring Ukraine in, which is literally right on the doorstep of Russia, and they would have been like, nah, 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 and so they probably would have gone and taken over Ukraine at that point, and then that would have triggered a war with all of NATO, um, and then Iran probably would have been involved in that because Iran and Russia are allied, and then I don't know where China plays a role, but I'm sure they probably just make a lot of money off of arms sales for the most part. Yeah.
yeah. I think that could have happened. I don't know, but my main point with that is that that sounds like a giant shit show, and I would rather have shit show debates than some sort of shit show meat grinder that I have to get into.
Yeah. You also have the question of like what the American people would have done because um if
Yep.
Russia rolls in and conquers Ukraine, right? It's like,
Sure.
okay, well, does NATO go to war with Russia? Like they technically still have nukes, and even if they don't have nukes and it's all a lie, like if you go to war with them and nobody uses nukes, that whole nuke lie is gonna shatter. And do you want it to shatter? At a certain point, maybe it's worth breaking that illusion, but eh.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. To me, one of the funniest things is like everyone realizes that we probably would have gone to war with these major powers. I mean, major powers outside of the U.S. to any other country other than the U.S. And yeah, everyone can stomach that. And it's funny to me, like in Syria, when Trump sent the missiles over to those airfields after we called them and told them, hey, by the way, we're going to blow up your old school MiGs from the 50s. Maybe take the parts off you want, and we're going to blow them up. I mean, a little bit hyperbolic, but we did that, and that's the first time I ever heard praise coming out of places like CNN, where Trump is finally acting presidential. It's so insane.
Yep.
And it makes me think that there's a side to this country, and I always thought it was the right. I really did. Who's a bunch of warmongers, which is why I really don't associate myself with I don't know with neocons. I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, for sure.
But it seems like the left is is the real side that really wants us to get into all these crazy conflicts. And how did that even come about? It was the left that really stood up against Vietnam, and I do not think we should have been in Vietnam at all. It was the left that judged Bush and called Bush a war criminal. I think rightly so. And now we're in 2020, and is it just because they hate Trump so bad that we must we must support whatever Trump is against, or is it that they've always been doing this kabuki theater thing? Where yes, oh no, we really don't want these wars, but secretly they really want this, I don't know, this Star Wars Empire style of America.
So I do have an answer for that. It's so there's a couple aspects. And I believe Lind had a on his blog he had something about this to a certain degree. So it's kind of a two-pronged thing. So one is Obama broke their brains is one, and two is in the '60s they went from trying to uh, undercut the culture to being in control of the culture by 2020. So that kind of changes things. So uh, we'll start with the culture one. So the in the '70s, '60s, and '70s and stuff like that, where you have like the hippie movement and all that, like they're trying to uproot and undermine like traditional American values, and one of the ways they're going to do that is because uh, the perception that America had of their military was like these good people and these strong and they're admirable people kind of thing because of the perception after World War II. So they had to ruin that. So they do that through their protests of the Vietnam War. And hey, I'm not saying they were wrong to do that, but this is like the secondary objective of these protests, right? Then because uh, you've lowered the morale of your standard um, person today, or like your more traditional types, then with them having a low morale, you can use that to overtake um, various institutional spots like and obviously they had control of like certain campuses and stuff like that, but it gets more drastic. They take more control of places like Hollywood and stuff like that, and this low morale allows them to deeper and deeper cut into the cultural fabric and go against the cultural fabric. And because the traditional people have such low morale, they don't have the uh, will to fight back against it, kind of thing. Now they're in control by 2020, and they're against Bush because he got them into all these wars, and then they get a black president, right? And they have like this thing where they can't criticize him no matter what kind of thing because he's, he speaks well and he's got all these and he's black, so it checks one of the intersectionality boxes, and there's just like um certain aspects about him, and then he gets us into 5 other wars, and now then Trump comes along, right? And now you're in this awkward spot where you you basically had black Jesus to them, which is Obama, and you have somebody that wants to end the wars, but if basically to criticize and say that they're against the war kind of thing is to say that Obama wasn't actually black Jesus, and they mentally can't do that. Like it breaks their brain. So, and on top of that, now they're part of the establishment, right? So the wars are profitable to establishment types, right? Um, since we started the war in Afghanistan, heroin production or poppy seed production is up like 500% or 5,000%. Like, and a lot of the back alley stuff that's going through is a bunch of politicians that are making a lot of money off of like things like uh, the heroin production in Afghanistan and some other back alley stuff, and the huge budgets of the uh, United States military, where like a bunch of it's unaccounted for, and it basically just gets sloughed back into the pockets of politicians and stuff like that. So it's very profitable for them, so they don't want to give that up. And on top of that, they had somebody in there who, uh, because of their identitarian political belief type stuff, makes it very hard for them to criticize him. That's kind of all I got on that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, no, there's a couple things I really liked about Obama. Like so he did say he was going to get us all out of all this wars. Did that happen? Obviously, it didn't happen. As you just overviewed. The other thing is Obama did talk at least briefly about making sure that families had men in them, and he got berated for that pretty bad. At least that's the way I understand it, and he backed off of that. Although being the first black president, I think that really gave him a position of authority that could have really benefited a lot of families in America to a level that a lot of other figureheads probably could not have done. Um, I don't know. It's very unfortunate that he didn't use his power better than he did.
Yeah,
But yeah,
well he
yeah,
he was very effective at sowing racial tension, and then that benefited specifically him to help like political things and stuff like that. But like once he goes, like now you have to deal with the mess that he created, and that's why we have this like divisive like culture and identitarian war going on right now, is because uh is partially because Obama like sowed those seeds kind of thing, and now when people are kind of acting on that, because like some people could kind of overlook it to a certain degree when it was like Obama, because mainly because of the way he speaks. He's like there's something about like the oratory aspects of him that just kind of um, calm people down, I guess, is like the best way, like lull them into a sleep kind of thing. And obviously
no,
there's
he
some
was an
people,
excellent speaker. Yeah, he was an excellent speaker.
uh, but now those chickens are kind of coming home to roost, and you have more like it's given it sowed the seeds for like these hardcore lefties to push their agendas and stuff like that. Now they're like, okay, well this is the new thing, right? Like, um, is minorities good? And it's been that way for a long time. But um, when he's saying things like, if I had a son, it would look like Trayvon, kind of thing, like those kind of things, it's you're not helping the situation.
No, he did a lot to make things a lot worse in this country, and I don't think that the average person. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Tell me what you think about this. But I don't think the average person really trusts the institutions in America, for one reason or another. I don't know, like the Operation Fast and Furious, that drove me absolutely insane. If I were to go and take a bunch of firearms, in this case SKSs and AK-47s, and sell them to a bunch of foreigners, man, I would never see the the light of day ever again. But because it's the ATF that did it with Obama's approval, or at least that's what it sounds like, there's no accountability. These people can go sell weapons of war to a bunch of people who they know are going to use them because they're a bunch of cartel guys, the kind of guys that will melt people in bathtubs with acid. Um, yeah, there's no accountability, just none, and they did it that way. They could raise, the way I understand it is they could raise violence levels. That way, they could have a better argument for why we need to get rid of firearms in America because Mexico's having a bunch of problems, and those problems from Mexico are bleeding over to America. And after that, okay, fine. This is one lie I caught you guys on. How the hell am I supposed to believe you guys on anything ever again? Especially when it's that big of a deal. And that, I don't know, it doesn't even compare to a lot of other almost more high profile incidents. Um, Most notably being at least in my opinion, the one that I find most fascinating is probably the Vegas shooting with the bump stock. So they never showed us any pictures of a bump stock. They never they showed us a picture of a guy who's dead on the ground with a revolver right next to his head or some sort of handgun right next to his head. I believe it was a revolver. And yeah, we're supposed to say that, oh, hey, look at this perfect photo op right here. You know, this guy, he's not sweating. Obviously, this is the pistol he blew his brains out with. Of course, we didn't touch him. We didn't move him around because we wouldn't do that. Um, And my thing is like, when I'm in a pretty high stress situation, when I'm airsofting or paintballing or, just running around playing sports with my friends like Ultimate Frisbee, man, I'm sweating my butt off. And granted, I don't think I would ever be in the situation because I'm not any sort of agent of any type. Um, Someone who is going to go and fire on a crowd and be in a crazy high stress situation, unless they're, I don't know, a level 100 psychopath, is going to be sweating like sweating literal bullets. And no, this guy looks like he died in an air conditioned hotel, and also he's got what 100 guns and a million rounds of ammo in his hotel room. Give me a break. It wasn't that story. It smells rancid as hell.
Yeah,
And they also didn't show us any of the pictures of the bump stocks. And no, they're pounding the table. They're not pounding the evidence.
yeah. It's there's a lot of issues with that whole thing. A lot of those shootings and stuff like that. Like there's people who have looked into like the death certificate stuff, and the death certificates never show up because they're a matter of public record. So they should show up, and they never do. Um, for like a lot of the recent ones at least. And then like yeah, with the Vegas one, there's like a million inconsistencies. There's a bunch of weird stuff, and then that just disappeared um, from the news and stuff like that. Never be talked about again. And then another caveat of like why something's weird about it is Eminem made a song about it to try to, because like that's what they do, right? So when they want to control the narrative, they'll make up some BS or whatever. Then when the truth starts to get revealed, they'll bury it. Um, if they if if they choose to even bring it up to begin with. And then to cement the lie, they will create a pop song about it that um, will become the new reference point for how people see it. That's why, like, when you see some of these, I think they made like an Epstein, like they've been churning out like documentaries about some stuff where it's stuff that's recently happened, and you'd be like, oh, you want like the dust to settle on this. Some of it makes sense that you would do it right now, just because you want to be able to get some people that are still alive right now, and it's kind of fresh in their memory, like on record kind of thing. But like the Epstein one and stuff like that, not to say that like that stuff didn't happen, but like there's something weird that you would try to crank that out so quickly, and uh, part of it is just is to break people's brains potentially by like showing them all this horrific stuff, and then uh, it it's like a numbing type thing. Another effect it can have is um, is like you get to show like this is what happened kind of thing, and I don't know exactly what happened in it, but like part of it might be like framing the whole thing of like, and then Epstein killed himself, right? And we all know that Epstein didn't kill himself right now, but like if the only point of reference that most people have like 20 to 30 years from now is this documentary, and they're like just told like the thing, and they aren't given any of the really weird details around like how he died or whatever, they'll probably just take like, oh yeah, he probably killed himself kind of thing, because like the amount a lot of the information that they contextual information they would have had has faded out, and so there's nothing for them to reference off of to see like how shady that is, and that's why they want to get a lot of this stuff down on paper now, before they because it controls it for the future generations, and the classic Orwell quote where it's you control the if you control the past uh, and the future, you control the, or if you control the past, you control the present. If you control the present, you control the future. So that's kind of the whole way of thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I totally agree with that.
Um, Trying to think of another topic we need to jump to. Uh, you want to talk about financial collapse?
Um, I don't know enough about it, but I would be happy to ask you questions and to go into it with you.
Okay, so I'm thinking,
Oh, actually, one thing I want to talk about real quick.
what's up?
So, something I find very interesting. So, you know how the Declaration of Independence was signed, I think it was July 4th, 1776, which I'm pretty sure that that's correct.
I think it's July 3rd. Or was it
No,
written July 3rd and then signed
was
July
it?
4th?
No, you know it, right around there, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm being, yeah, way too technical. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, but anyways, so Civil War in this country happened in 1861, which is less than 100 years later. And
Four
I
score
did
and 7 years ago.
say it again.
Four score and 7 years ago. It's about
Yeah,
70 years, I think.
yeah. But anyways, so that happened, and that's pretty insane to me. Is it possible to keep everyone in a country calm? Is balkanization just a natural thing that happens? Do we evolve separately? I just
It
don't.
doesn't naturally happen, no.
Sorry, say it again.
It doesn't naturally happen. It's a natural outgrowth of um unnatural borders. So what happens is let's take the Balkans for example, right? Or it a lot of African nations, this is a similar situation that they have, uh, and I think the Middle East suffers from this to a certain degree as well. Uh, where you had groups of people that were like basically after World War II, a bunch of borders were drawn, and nobody really cared about which groups are actually in these borders, right? And so you have a bunch of different groups that do not identify with each other within these borders, and they have to somehow live together. And the so basically the whole thing is like it's going to be like a political power grab kind of thing. So before uh, Yugoslavia broke up into the various countries it is now, they had this dictator named Tito that was in charge of the whole thing. and that's kind of what you need to hold these things together. Uh, when it like in their specific case. So he was I don't know a lot about him, but he seemed to be pretty well respected, and even by um, people from that were part of Yugoslavia back in the day, like they were a big fan of him, kind of thing. Even though he's a dictator, and dictators need to be ruthless at times and stuff like that. But that's how you hold groups of people together that don't want to live together. Is you have to be somewhat ruthless, and then also kind of you basically divide up the country in a way that it's like you're all under one umbrella country, but like you all kind of have your own areas, right? And that's why, and then then you can get along. Um, but after he died, there wasn't really anyone to step into that role, and now you have three different people that have three different sets of people. That all want to put their guy in power to control the whole thing, and to obviously benefit their group over the others. Well, that's just a divisive thing that's going to cause a lot of issues, and so then you end up having this fracturing, and then each group ends up in a control of their own nation state and their own thing. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I dated a Serbian when I was in high school. So yeah, no, I've heard about the Tito and all these different small Eastern European countries going to war with each other. Pretty crazy, pretty hectic, pretty tragic.
yeah, so
But we
but
were suggesting,
now
yep,
that Serbia exists, right? And there's basically like it's a country of Serbians run by Serbians, right? Now you don't
yes,
have the threat of balkanization because you're all one nation, right? Like there might be other factors that maybe come into play where like but like the only thing that would potentially split it more is if like we went back to a feudal system for one reason or another, or for some reason due to various economic collapse type things, uh, um, smaller polities gained more control, right? So it basically, due to economic collapse, you can't sustain nation states anymore. So political centers break and become much more localized and spread out. So that's where you would have the rise of things like city states again, and and feudal lords, and uh, they control more of the rural countryside type stuff, and that's how that would break apart. But that I think that would have to be tied to a much more extreme like economic collapse kind of thing that just makes it so that the economics of a nation state don't function anymore, and therefore you have to have much more localized political um, entities.
sure. But this would be a regression back to, I don't know, like this would be a regression back to a point where at least the European Americans and everyone who's come to America afterwards haven't seen ever.
Yeah, it'd have to be to the level of like a bronze. It'd either be like a Roman or a Bronze Age collapse, but it would have to be worldwide.
Yeah,
Because I
no,
don't think
I see that.
because I don't think localized feudalism would work. Because I think you would be too weak if you were surrounded by other nation states. Like one of those nation states probably has ambitions of empire somewhere in there, and if you're just a feudal system right next to them, I think you're way too vulnerable to um, the ambitions of empire, and you get swallowed up.
Oh, absolutely. It wouldn't be possible, at least in my opinion.
Now, the thing that could here's the thing that I think potentially breaks this whole thing. If the entire debt Ponzi scheme comes crashing down, that's where nation states potentially lose their uh, political centrality to the degree where smaller political centers pop up again, because they can't maintain their bureaucracy and stuff like that, and either they would have to acknowledge the fact that they need to be much more restrictive, and basically their only job is to run a military and protect the borders, and that's it, and just get their hands out of all the other bureaucratic stuff that comes with a nation state, and then they could potentially survive, or if they don't do that, which is much more likely, and the entire debt bubble collapses, then um, people are going to go back to much more localized groups, and you're going to see a lot of uh, town centers becoming much more powerful, like small towns, like 200 family type things, and feudal lordship type stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Um, hmm. Yeah. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, and I think maybe it has more validity than I'm giving it credit for immediately. Um, I don't know. Like, there's stories in the Bible, right, where one tribe, goes and enslaves another tribe, right?
Yep.
And then they just become one tribe after a while. So you could take two completely separate groups of people, and you can form one tribe after a while. Then they're genetically distinct from either of the two original tribes, and that is what I would assume would happen with America eventually. Um,
It would if we didn't have so many ethnic groups in it. We have way too many ethnic groups. I mean, think about the fact that like we've kind of just gotten to the fact like I don't really believe in the idea of like white, right? But
no, me either.
like that's kind of what it would be. So like we've kind of gotten to a place where most people kind of accept the idea of white and most people kind of accept the idea of black, right? And uh that's two groups of people from that that captures a large swath um of people from a variety of backgrounds. And in a sense, there there is some cultural things that fall under like white and black and stuff like that. But if you break it down, to their nations, they're far more diverse than it's given. And obviously, that's kind of how it works, right? If you go from nation, you broke it down to family. Each family has their own traditions and uniqueness that um, maybe lines up with some of this stuff from the nation, but not all of it, kind of thing. Like it is fractal to a certain extent, but uh, is the white thing gonna stick? I don't think so.
Why don't you think so? Like, so I don't know. Um, I think if I was to go to Europeans and tell, I don't know, an Italian and a Russian that, yo, you people are exactly the same, they would laugh in my face, and rightfully so. But in America, there's not, and people know that, yeah, I'm like this percentage German, or I'm this percentage Irish, or what have it. But pretty much everyone over here is a total mutt of one sort or another.
Yeah, and but like white isn't gonna be uh, as more and more other groups collectivize behind a national identity. It's gonna force the people that are in the group white to collectivize under a national, and it's not gonna, and it that whole umbrella of white isn't gonna collectivize under one umbrella, right? Because like like white encompasses both like the liberal like communist left type people and like your Christian conservative types. Those are going to be two different groups.
Just a bit.
So, and they might not stay as two groups because I don't see how like the liberal side lives, right? If things go full identitarian, uh the the liberal ideology is a self-defeating one that's just going to kill itself. Like the whole thing is like um basically being white's a sin, so I can't reproduce. So like let's just say like non-violent way, like they just decide not to reproduce because it's like sinful to have more white people on Earth or whatever. They just die in a generation then.
A couple, yeah. Their population rate is below replacement, and as far as I have been able to see, it looks like the conservative Christian For lack of a better word, whites or European descendants, they have a slightly above population replacement.
Yeah, you want to know who's really carrying the white population right now? It's Amish and Mormons. So thank you, you two groups, for carrying the flag. They have an average family size of 7.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, I'm sure both these groups of people are great, but yeah, really not my style, either of them.
Yeah, I'm not like it's um what is it like cultural, like, you know, that like stupid cultural appropriation thing they say, like cultural adaptation, right? I like the fact they have big families. So am I going to become Amish? Am I going to become Mormon? No, I'm just going to adopt the thing that I like about them, which is having a big family, which I really need
I
to
agree.
actually focus on doing. But, you know, that like that's the way to go. Even the this was pointed out, I forgot where, but it might have been on Van Creveld's blog. But the only Western nation that has like above replacement rate birth rate is Israel. For some reason, Israel's popping out babies like crazy. They're at average family size of like 5 or 6 or something like that. So you know, it's same thing. Like that's a good, like, you, if you want to have a strong nation, you have to have strong families.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, so someone in my family said this to me recently. They said that the reason that we're seeing all these protests, sorry, I didn't mean to say protests, these riots, these angry young people, at least in this person's opinion, is because this is probably the groups of people that were all dropped off in daycares and they weren't given the love and the attention that they needed, and they're freaking pissed off, and they might not realize that that's why they're so angry, but that they've been pissed off since they were kids, and they're still pissed off, and they don't give a shit about anyone other than themselves. And yeah, the system didn't work for them, so why not burn it down? Which I think is actually a fairly reasonable argument.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like an aspect of that, and like the whole um there's logical reasons for like the communist thing, right? You know, it's the whole like, oh, nothing comes for free, and it's like, yeah, but like they'll hear from their boomer parents of like, oh, well, you know, there's no such thing as a free lunch and stuff costs stuff or whatever, and they see that like we've just racked up debt after debt to be put on our generation, and like all this irresponsible spending and not building to the next generation, and there's two
Oh yeah,
ways you
the
can you
boomers totally destroyed us. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. But like there's two ways you can look at that, right? So you can look at that and be like, uh um you can take the one road, which is, okay, well, you know, what they did was wrong and we need to rebuild and uh uh um start the chain of civilization again. Or the other one is, well, fuck you, you got to pay out, now I want mine. And
yeah, but it
that's
only
the
goes so
route the
far.
communists went. They're like, I want my fucking payout. You already got your payout.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's actually kind of maybe it's not as analogous as I thought.
Well, no, I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's okay. You got to do this thing, and that benefited you hugely. So why shouldn't I be able to do it? Why do I have to pay for the sins of my father and my mother?
Yeah, and it
And yeah, I understand that.
yeah, and I don't think we're gonna have to. I think all this debt's gonna get defaulted on, personally. Um, we'll see. We're coming up on the round where the financial collapse is gonna happen again, and so we'll see who gets bailed, if anybody. So you can bail the creditors, you can bail the debtors, or you can bail nobody. And either bailing nobody or bailing the debtors is the way to go, in my opinion. But and you can't bail all the debtors, so that's where it gets kind of weird. Um, like you probably
That's
just
when you
have to
get
let.
Weimar territory.
No, it's not that you get into Weimar territory. It's that some of the debtors are also the creditors, and therefore it creates a massive moral hazard if you bail out one of the. Like it already created a hazard when you bailed out the creditors last time. If you bail out their debts or whatever, it's as bad. Like basically, you don't want to probably bail out um, business debt because that needs to get liquidated and those assets need to be redistributed or find more productive homes, kind of thing. But uh, things like housing debt and student loan debt doesn't you don't have that issue of redistribution kind of thing. Um, so liquidating those the debts off of those people is only going to increase the usefulness. You're not going to want to liquidate things. So okay, so here's how I would probably do it. Now I'm thinking about this. So you're going to uh, you're going to wipe out student loan debt. You're going to wipe out housing debt as long as it is the house, as long as you have a mortgage on the house, kind of thing. Um, and so, or not a mortgage on the house, but what am I trying to say? A like if you took out a home equity loan so you could buy a boat, you're not getting that cleared. Uh, which is basically you take a loan out on the value of your house to be able to
Yeah, I
buy
know.
more things. Um, so I would probably clear those two. Now it gets into a little bit of a gray area of, you know, somebody that took out a loan to get. Oh, also you would only okay, so you couldn't it you would only bail out people's primary residence. So if it's a rental property, you don't get bailed. If you own like 5 homes and they're all on debt, one of those homes is getting bailed. Uh, I think that there's probably some more caveats in there, but like that should factor for most of the things, and then that would allow a proper reset and the necessary liquidation that needs to happen with various things that would drive prices down. So it would basically it should ensure the goal with the thing is to ensure that people that took out loans for stupid shit like a boat and and got themselves way too deep in are going to get liquidated because they don't deserve to get bailed. But that people who are in and have a primary residence and need to have a roof over their head continue to have a roof over their head. And yeah, and
I
that's
don't know, Andrew. Like, I think that a boat is a much more reasonable investment than, I don't know, the majority of liberal arts degrees I know of. And should we bail
true.
out people who just got these garbage degrees in just ridiculous studies? I think most studies are completely ridiculous, and most of these things you learn online.
Um, yes, I agree with that. And but and taking care like getting downsizing colleges and stuff like that is something that's going to have to happen as well with this. I guess it's but you don't have any assets to liquidate from a student. So you're basically just you have this weight around their neck for no reason. And also it doesn't cost the government to do anything because the government holds all the debt. So it's just like all they have to say is you don't have to pay us back.
Okay.
It's basically what they've done right now because I don't know if you still have student loans or not, but the student loan
No,
interest rate
I
is
don't.
so the student loan interest rate is 0 right now, and uh, and you don't have to pay anything on it. So I'm just sitting on it, and it, it's still technically there, but like if they decide to just, it's the exact same. Like let's say they just extended that forever. Well, that's the same thing as having my debt wiped out, because I never have to pay it back because it's never gonna go up, and I never have to. like make a payment on it.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So I mean, you might as well just wipe it out, kind of thing. And it's, if you want people to be able to start building wealth and stuff like that, you have to remove these chains that are holding them back, and you need to also stop them from creating the chains to begin with, which is why I think we should get rid of the whole debt system to begin with, or as well. But that's gonna require some more stuff.
Yeah, no, I understand that. To a degree, I don't know. I still think you're wrong on like loans and all that. To a large degree.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, I think that, so correct me if I'm wrong, but your argument is that you should not be able to give a loan with interest, right?
Yes. Or you can't give a loan with interest, and you can't do fractional uh, reserves because that's fraud as well.
Yeah, no, I understand this, but so if I'm loaning people money, and there's a huge risk if I loan someone money and they are not able to pay me back. Like if you owe a bank $10,000, you're in trouble. But if you own the bank $10 million, the bank's in trouble.
Yeah, I know.
And I just don't know how you would ever be able to loan anything to anyone without it more being a gift, unless you had interest on it.
Okay. A, yes. And B, like think about how the term debt was used before we like our monetary stuff, right? If someone saved your life, you'd be like, I owe you a life debt, kind of thing. Well, does that accrue interest, or is that just I owe you what you have given me, right? Like if you're in need, if you need like if someone's gonna die and you need them to be saved, you saved my life, so I will save their life, and then my debt is repaid to you. It's not like, well, it took you 10 years to repay or to cash in on that debt, so now I get two lives. That's so like the whole idea of like interest. Why do you deserve more money for having money? Like, what actual value have you created?
Well, I mean, it's not that you haven't created value. It's just that you made a risk with your own assets.
Okay, well, that's called investment, and you don't always get to reap a reward. The thing with interest is you always get paid. if
Okay.
if you want to invest in someone's company and take a risk and say, look, I'm going to give you this money, and in 5 years or whatever, when the company's doing well, I'm going to own a certain percentage of the company, and that's going to, as long as the company continues to do well, I get a return for giving you the money to be able to get this thing running. That's different because if the thing goes belly up, you don't get anything. You lose all your money. That's how it's supposed to work. The bank's a zero risk thing. You owe me money no matter what. If the thing goes belly up, doesn't matter. You still owe me that money. And not just owe me the amount of money that I gave you, but owe me the money plus some.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, that does make a bit more sense. So you're suggesting, like, this is a simplified example, but let's say that, I don't know, some guy loans you $10,000 to start a business. And would it be moral for you two to have the agreement? Okay, Andrew, I'm lending you this money. However, after 2 years, I am going to start taking 5% of your income that year, because I've loaned this money to you, and I am taking that for the next 10 years, assuming that your company makes money. Would that be moral?
Um, that's a maybe because it has the caveat of making money. Basically, if the agreement is I get a share in the profits when you end up making profits, then it's fine. It's the difference is like I get money regardless of whether or not your company is profitable or not.
No, I understand. Thank you.
So, uh,
Yeah, no, I think that makes some sense.
yeah, I don't even remember where we started with that whole thing and why we got onto that tangent.
Um, I don't know. Maybe if we had a bigger audience, they'd be able to tell us.
If only. Oh well.
But no, we were talking about debt, and yeah, I don't know how we got there. We did though.
Alrighty. Do you want to wrap there? Because I do have to help my parents paint. So.
Okay. Yeah. No. Sure. I'm happy to wrap there. So thanks everyone for coming by. If you guys want to listen to us, we're gonna get together every Saturday. Um, Occasionally we won't, but we will put out a notification saying that we will not be there. Andrew's going to do some podcasts called According to Andrew about different thoughts that Andrew has. I may do these eventually too, but for the moment, I am not planning on it.
Alrighty. Thank you everybody for listening. Like, comment, subscribe if you thought it was interesting. And yeah, if you have any topics that you want us to cover, yeah, just leave a comment and we'll make sure to cover it. Unless it's something that's really outside of our wheelhouse.
We will get back to you if you email us, at least with our subscriber base right now.
Yeah. So I've been Andrew,
I've been Nate.
and this has been Andrew and Nate Podcast. Thank you very much for listening.
Have a good week, everyone.